everybody, I'm BC Begley, and these are your news headlines for September 30th of 2022. Wall Street prepares to close out miserable week, month, and quarter. Stocks were choppy on Friday as traders looked to close out a terrible week that brought the S&P 500 to a new 2022 low. The S&P 500 was up 0.55%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 52 points, or 0.18%, and the Nasdaq Composite was up 1% higher. An inflation report closely watched by the Federal Reserve, released on Friday, showed that prices continued to increase at a rapid pace. The Fed Vice Chair on Friday underscored the need to bring down inflation, saying the central bank is, quote, committed to avoiding pulling back prematurely on restrictive monetary policy. Friday also marked the last day of the month and the third quarter. For September, the S&P 500 and the Dow are both down more than 7% each through Thursday's close, and that would be the worst monthly performance for the Dow since March of 2020 and the biggest one-month decline for the S&P 500 since June. The Nasdaq is headed for its biggest monthly loss since April, so far losing 9.1%. Hurricane Ian is bearing down on South Carolina. Ian was bearing down on the South Carolina coast on Friday as a Category 1 hurricane with maximum sustained winds of around 85 miles per hour. The storm's winds and rain were becoming more prevalent in the Palmetto State as Ian swirled offshore. Hurricane warnings were issued along the entire coast of South Carolina on Thursday morning and put into effect for a section of the North Carolina coastline later in the day. Ian was churning about 60 miles to the east-southeast of Charleston, South Carolina on Friday morning and was moving northward at about 14 miles per hour. Dangers will continue to spread northward across the southeast as Ian approaches the South Carolina coast and makes landfall around 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Friday. Hazards will include flooding rainfall, dangerous storm surge, damaging winds, and severe weather as Ian makes that trek. After Hurricane Ian, the effects in southwest Florida are everywhere. Hurricane Ian was over southwest Florida for only a few hours, but it will take months to clean up all of the damage, maybe even longer, and some of the destruction can't be cleaned up at all. From trees getting ripped out of the ground to signs being ripped apart, traffic lights crashing onto roadways, and some buildings simply just being destroyed. The impact was everywhere, and almost nothing was spared. The only difference between one place and the next was the severity of the problems. Fort Myers Beach is quite simply destroyed. Businesses are gone. Jobs are obviously lost, at least temporarily, and the cleanup will take weeks, and that will almost certainly have to precede any rebuilding efforts. Deaths mount, celebrities detained in Iran's ruthless protest crackdown. Iran stepped up pressure on celebrities and journalists on Thursday over the wave of women-led protests sparked by outrage over the death of Mahsa Amini after she was arrested by the Islamic Republic's morality police. The Iranian security forces' crackdown on protesters and those who support them has left 83 people dead so far, according to the Norway-based Iran Human Rights Organization. Filmmakers, athletes, musicians, and actors have backed the demonstrations, and many saw it as a signal when the national soccer team remained in their black tracksuits when the anthems were played before a match in Vienna against Senegal. Quote, "We will take action against the celebrities who have fanned the flames of the riots," Tehran provincial governor said, according to the ISNA news agency. Putin accuses the West of blowing up pipelines as Europe steps up vigilance. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday blamed the United States and its allies for blowing up the undersea Nord Stream pipelines, raising the temperature in a crisis that has left Europe racing to secure its energy infrastructure and supplies. Russia has previously said the United States would profit from attacks on Europe's energy infrastructure. Quote, "The sanctions were not enough for the Anglo-Saxons. They moved on to sabotage," Putin said. Quote, "It is hard to believe it, but it is a fact that they organized the blast on the Nord Stream international gas pipelines." Putin's accusation is likely to be strongly resisted by European countries. The United States, which has said it is too early to confirm it was sabotage, has dismissed talk that it itself was responsible. Army major and wife indicted for conspiring to give Russia medical secrets. An army physician and her anesthesiologist wife have been indicted for conspiring to give Russia medical information to help with its invasion of Ukraine, the Justice Department announced on Thursday. Major Jamie Lee Henry, a doctor at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, and her wife, Anna Gabrielian, an anesthesiologist in Maryland, told an undercover FBI agent in August they'd be willing to provide medical information to the Russian government, according to the indictment unsealed on Thursday. Henry and Gabrielian met with an individual they believed was associated with the Russian government, but who was really an undercover agent, the indictment said. The couple allegedly told the agent they could pass on medical records to Russia of U.S. military family members, and other individuals. UK Royal Mint reveals King Charles III coin portrait. The United Kingdom can expect a slow influx of coins bearing the portrait of King Charles III. The UK Royal Mint announced on Tuesday that coins bearing the face of the freshly ascended King Charles III will be trickling into circulation as they are demanded. The Royal Mint explained, quote, "We can confirm that coins struck at the Royal Mint bearing King Charles III's portrait will enter circulation in line with demand from banks, post offices, co-circulating with existing coins featuring Queen Elizabeth II. We'll share further details soon," he said. British currency is released without a schedule and instead is distributed to banks and other financial institutions when they request physical money. At least 25 dead after a suicide bomb blast at an educational center in Kabul. A suicide bomb attack on an educational center in Kabul has killed at least 25 people, most of whom are believed to be young women, in the latest sign of the deteriorating security situation in the Afghan capital. The explosion took place on Friday at the Kaj Education Center in a predominantly Hazara neighborhood, an ethnic minority group that has long faced oppression. In addition to those killed, at least 56 people were injured, and these are according to reports from local area hospitals. Heavy gunfire in Burkina Faso capital, soldiers on the streets according to witnesses. Heavy gunfire was heard coming from the main military camp and some residential areas of Burkina Faso's capital early on Friday morning, Reuters reported. Several armed soldiers were seen taking positions along the main avenue leading to the presidency. Soldiers were also seen blocking access to administrative buildings and the national television, which has stopped broadcasting. The military junta took power in a coup back on January 24th, ousting President Roch Kabore and dissolving the government there. Eurozone inflation soars to a record 10%, piling pressure on the European Central Bank. Eurozone inflation hit a new record high of 10% on September, Eurostat data showed on Friday, up from 9.1% in August and above the consensus projections of 9.7%. The reading also showed price increases broadening out from volatile food and energy prices into nearly all segments of the 19-member bloc's economy. Energy prices rose 40.8% year-on-year, up from 38.6% in August, followed by food, alcohol, and tobacco at 11.8%, up from 10.6% last month. However, core inflation, which excludes food and energy, climbed 4.8% on the year, up from 4.3% back in August, and economists broadly expect the situation to get worse before it gets any better. The CIA allegedly invested in powerful genetic mutation and woolly mammoth resurrection technology. The U.S. intelligence agency may have just invested in a woolly mammoth resurrection technology through its venture capital firm. The CIA has always pursued technologies related to intelligence and weapons, but recently has shown a greater interest in DNA sequencing, according to a report published by The Intercept on Wednesday. Colossal Biosciences is a biotechnology firm with headquarters in Dallas, Texas. Peter Thiel, Tony Robbins, and Paris Hilton and the CIA are just some well-known backers and investors that founders George Church and Ben Lamb have already accumulated. Colossal claims it plans to employ cutting-edge genetic sequencing, or CRISPR, to bring back 2 extinct creatures, including the gigantic Ice Age mammoth and the Tasmanian tiger, a medium-sized marsupial that became extinct less than a century ago.